Hello! I think it's on.
Hi.
Can you hear me? Is that okay?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Breanna, I can. Hello, everybody. I am so excited for tonight. Breanna, thank you so much for joining us. I am so grateful that you are here. Before we kick into it, I would really like to start our evening by acknowledging and paying respects to Australia's Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, the traditional custodians of the lands, waterways and skies across Australia. We thank you for sharing and caring the land on which we are able to learn this evening. We pay our respects to elders past and present and share our friendship and kindness. Now, Breanna, I think before we begin, it would also be a really good idea for you to do a little bit of a disclaimer about mental health and how this might make people feel. So I'll let you do that, and then we can jump into all of the fun stuff.
Thank you. And also thank you so much for having me in the community and joining you tonight. I'm really excited to talk to everyone.
Oh, I'm so excited you're here.
Yeah, but you're right. I do want to do a little bit of a disclaimer. So tonight we might be talking about things to do with people's mental health and mental illness and all of things well-being and that kind of thing. But what we do talk about tonight doesn't replace, is general advice only, and it doesn't replace one-on-one advice that you might get from your own mental health professional or your GP. So take what we say and apply it retrospectively in your own kind of space, but don't be afraid to seek the support as you need it. And in saying that, we might talk about things that do trigger your own kind of mental health. We all have our own experiences of mental illness and mental health, and it's important that you really take stock of how you're feeling, and if anything does bring up any sort of uncomfortable emotion for you, that you reach out for support. And you'll see, for those of you in the chat, I've pinned some numbers up the top there. You can call Lifeline on 13 11 14, or you can contact Beyond Blue on 1300 22 46 36 in Australia if you do need some support. So that's just to kick us off this evening.
Yeah, perfection. I think that that's really important. And I think that before we get into this, I would like to just talk to you quickly about self-care, about what it means. And then we have been so lucky and we're flooded. I sent you a list earlier today of all the questions that we got from you guys about self-care and what it means, and all of these really juicy personal questions that I know we'll have a heap of fun listening to and learning about. But before we get started, I think it's important to introduce you, Breanna, to our community, because you are very special, but not many people in the community might know who you are yet. Yeah. So I know that introducing yourself is awkward, so I'm going to do it for you, but if I get it wrong, please let me know. Okay. So guys, Breanna is a registered psychologist and mental health advocate, and she is based in Sydney, and she has a passion for all things psychology. So do I, but she's way more passionate about it than me. And she works with a wide variety of clients, including adults, teenagers, children, and professionals. And what I love most about Breanna's approach is that she wants to change the way we approach the subject of mental health and mental illness and show everyone how useful psychology can actually be in everyday life. Breanna and I actually met earlier this year. We met back in March. Remember when we were allowed out of the house and I was literally allowed to leave the state? It was so wild. We met when you and I were both guest speakers at the International Women's Day event for Urban List. Yeah. And Breanna started the entire, I think it was a panel event. And I was speaking on the panel, and Breanna was actually the guest speaker at the start. And I was honestly captivated by her presentation. I actually was up the very back of the room, and I wanted to be yelling down the entire room, being like, yes, this is so spot on. Aww. So when I was working out how to bring us all together as a She's on the Money community and going, I really think that webinars would be a really great thing. We can grab a glass of wine or a cup of tea and have a chat. Breanna was actually the first person I thought, and she was the first port of call, but you know that because I already told you. And I'm so beyond grateful for you joining us this evening and for all your knowledge and advice. So thank you for joining us.
No, that was so lovely. Can you follow me around everywhere and do that?
Yeah, I can. I'll be so yeah, this is McDonald's, KFC, yeah. This is Breanna, guys.
I love that. That's perfect. No, thank you. That's very nice. But equally that day I was I'm very captivated by you and all the women on the panel. That was an amazing day.
Oh, so cool.
And I think I was talking about imposter syndrome and how to embrace your talents and your your achievements and that kind of thing. And I think you really epitomized that on the day. So that was really cool.
Yeah, awesome. Now, guys, a little bit of housekeeping. We obviously want to keep everything anonymous for the questions that we got anonymously, but we also have a live chat and you guys were able to pick your name. So it's first name basis only. And both Breanna and I can see what's going on there at the moment, but be aware that there is about a 60-second delay. So if you post something and it's really important and we haven't responded to it yet, it's not because we're being rude. It's actually because there is a delay on the chat versus when you see us, which is fine. I think it's also really important to say, because we're looking, like, we want you to ask questions. We really want this to be interactive. Like, this is an evening where I know a lot of us have been feeling, let's be honest, a bit lonely, a little bit thrown. Like, 2020 is not what we thought it was going to be. And if any of you are in Melbourne, like I am, you are in stage 4 lockdown and haven't left your house except for your 1 hour of allocated exercise every day. So for me, I have been looking forward to this all week and I am so, so excited. Claire and I think it was Daisy, you guys have both asked if this will be recorded at all. Yes, it absolutely will be, and we'll be uploading it to YouTube in the next couple of days as just a clip that everybody in the community can access. The only part that you guys won't be able to see is the live chat, so it'll just be the video. So we'll make sure that Breanna and I are reading out all of your questions. Yeah, I know, Claire, like stage 4 lockdown together, like feeling a little bit lonely, but that is okay. Breanna, should we jump straight into some of the questions that we got?
I think so. We have had some very, very, like, I love how honest and raw people were being, and
me too.
Not to quote, I love Brené Brown, but I don't want to be cliche.
I want to be Brené Brown.
Okay,
yes,
amazing.
No, quote her. She's
so the
amazing.
vulnerability that was shown, I loved it, and I think that's how we're going to get the most out of tonight, is if people are really authentic and just, you know, saying what's on their mind and then asking these questions. Because if you're thinking it or experiencing it, chances are someone else that's on here tonight is as well. So I love the question. So yeah, keep them coming through the chat.
100%. And I think that that's really important. But what was more important for me when we were going to talk about self-care, mental health, was actually getting a professional that could talk to us about what it actually is. So before we jump into the questions, Breanna, can you actually talk us through what self-care actually is? Because I think that there's so many different views of it. So many people think that maybe it's like getting your hair done and getting your nails done, and like that could be self-care. And whilst I don't doubt that that could be self-care for some people, like, what does it actually mean?
Yeah, so I think that's a really good point. Self-care for everyone is
also, before we jump in, guys, I've got a wine. I hope you guys do. I know, Breanna, you've got a tea because you're far more responsible than anybody else.
No, this is my self-care and that's your self-care.
Yeah, like, this is me just having one wine. So guys, definitely drink responsibly. But yeah, I'm definitely here with a wine, and I hope that I'm not the only one, because we should all be having a bit of a relax and a hang out. But back to you, Breanna, because I've got my wine and I'm so ready to soak up everything that you have to say.
Oh my goodness. So, hey, I might sound even better with a glass of wine in your hand, but
maybe I will. Maybe I'll just get really funny throughout the evening.
There you go. There's some people drinking with you, some cider. There's some.
I'm never alone, I promise you.
Yeah. But that's exactly the point. Self-care is that it's different for everyone, and whether you're sitting down with a hot chocolate or you're sitting down with a glass of wine, that could be self-care for you. But really, it's about doing what you need to do, and in a routine kind of based way, to look after yourself, to recharge, to re-energize. But also when life does become a little bit more stressful and life maybe, you know, is you're exuding more energy, or if we're in a pandemic, we're all a little bit more stressed out than we normally would be. It's about having extra things in our arsenal that we can turn to revitalize and recharge. So it's really the first step. You've got to be really self-aware. So know when you need extra support and extra self-care, but then have it implemented also throughout your kind of weekly routine, so that you're not depleting your energies and then becoming really overwhelmed. I think we've got a couple of questions throughout the night about that as well, but it's different for everyone. For me, the gym is not something that I can incorporate into my self-care routine, but I know for other people, if they don't go to the gym, then they're having a really, really horrible week. So self-care is really, really personal, and what works for one person won't necessarily work for you. So you've got to find your own kind of balance.
Absolutely. And I think that that's what's so important, because I did see a lot of the questions in our list of questions that we went through for this evening, talking about like, how can I do self-care if I'm, you know, not able to spend a lot of money? And I think we'll get to that soon. But I think it's really important to point out that, yeah, totally, like self-care isn't just going and getting blow waves and going and, you know, painting your nails. Like, and I think that that's really important. And if that's your type of self-care, then awesome. And if the gym is your self-care, then fantastic. But I think it's really important that, give me a second, Tanea, who happens to be our moderator this evening, is telling me that some people can't get in.
Oh my goodness. We'll let him in.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to let them in, but I don't know how this works. I'm not tech savvy.
Okay. But while you're working that out,
no, we've worked it out. Let's jump into the first question. Sure. I'm going to moderate the evening, and you are going to answer the questions, and I'm going to put my opinion in there, because Lord knows I can talk underwater with a mouthful of marbles.
Okay.
So, first question, and none of these have names. So, yes. I recently lost my casual job due to COVID and completed my undergraduate degree in June of this year. I've been looking for work, but I'm not having much luck, and I'm finding that without the structure of work or uni, I'm feeling quite depressed most days. I know I'm lucky compared to a lot of people. My parents aren't charging me rent, and Job Seeker is covering my other bills, but I'd love some tips and recommendations on how I can make the most use of this year and or set up some time and structure for myself. I'm hoping to return to postgrad study next year, so I have about 6 months. How do we feel about this one?
I feel there's a few things in here that are jumping out at me.
Yeah, there's like a lot to break down.
There's a lot out of there. I think the first thing that's jumping out at me is the idea about, first of all, being quite down most days is, of course, I empathize. I hate to hear that, you know, people aren't, you know, their energetic selves, and they aren't, you know, feeling as accomplished as they would like to be. But I'm also, you know, really mindful that right now we're in a pandemic, and I can't underestimate the enormity of what that means. This will only happen once in most of our lifetimes, hopefully. And that puts a lot of strain, not only on work, but mental health, absolutely, our physical health, absolutely. And we do need to be a little bit kinder. So when we are talking about, you know, goals and achievements and all of that kind of stuff, that really needs to be re-looked at and restructured according to the context that we're working in. And right now, like I said, it's a pandemic, and our goals need to be a little bit more aligned to what that means. So I love what she's saying about implementing some more structure for herself. When we're looking at mental health, when we're talking about anxiety or depression or anything like that, one of the first things I'm talking to my clients about is, what is your routine like? Because often when our mental health falls out, our routine kind of goes by the wayside as well. So if we can install some routine into our day, even if it's as simple as going to bed at the same time and getting up at the same time, having regular meals, like you said, getting out for your 1 hour of exercise a day if you are in stage 4 lockdown, all of those things are going to be so vital to trying to revitalize your mood. I think the other thing is, when we're talking about depressed mood during lockdown and that kind of thing, is the novelty has worn off, and novelty is something that excites us and, you know, brings us joy and those kind of things. You know, I remember back in March, me and my friends were doing spontaneous Zoom sessions. We'd have a glass of wine and we'd chat. But all of that kind of stuff has kind of stopped now. I get the vibe that that's really slowed down, and we might need to be starting to look at a little, how can we inject some novelty into our lives.
I feel like everyone's got a bit of like Zoom fatigue. Would you say that that's right?
Yeah, that's a real thing as well. Sitting in front of a screen is not good for your mental health. It's tiring. You know, I don't have to go on about what blue light is and how it impacts our brain, and, you know, it's draining. So yeah, that's a real thing. Zoom fatigue is a real thing. But, you know, if you're lucky enough to have a roommate or a partner or a family member that you're living with, you know, don't shy away from a board game or a deck of cards or something like that to inject some novelty and some spontaneity into your life. I love that she's showing gratitude for, you know, in this question she's talking about being lucky compared to some other people. And I think, falling back on that gratitude is a really good idea as well. Sometimes we're always longing for what we don't have, and we forget to look around at the things we do have. And we know that the thing that separates happy people from, unhappy people is often gratitude.
I love that. And I feel like I try so hard to be grateful every day, and I open every conversation I have with how grateful I am for a couple of reasons. One, I really want other people to know that I'm genuinely grateful for their presence, but then also it's like a reminder to me that I am grateful. And I feel like if you consistently say something, it becomes a part of who you are in a way. It doesn't become you don't forget, because it's always that thing that you use. And I think that what you are, what you try to be, you become. And for me, that's worked really, really well. I'm loving the comments down here. Everyone's like, yes, Zoom fatigue is real. I've been doing it. So true. I was Zooming with my parents last lockdown. I was Zooming with friends. We would do board game night via Zoom, which was an absolute nightmare, but guys, it was fun. And now I just feel like everyone's over it. And that's why I thought that since everyone's so over it, let's all hang out as a community and have these chats. And Breanna and I were talking about maybe doing them weekly. If you guys are interested, we'll ask questions, talk about things, we'll bring up different topics. Obviously we're talking about self-care this time, but we could talk about different questions or do more questions. Breanna, how about we move on to the next question? What do you reckon?
Yeah, sounds good.
So someone has written in and said, hello, I'm lucky that I'm still in a job and I'm healthy, but I still feel really apprehensive and stressed. It is almost as though the sadness of the situation that the world is in is having an effect on everyone, even though I'm totally okay. How do we stop feeling sad?
Great question. That is a great question. The first thing I want to address in there is about the feeling of being stressed. So in a pandemic, which is what we're in, I'm going to say that a few times tonight, our anxiety response is triggered, because our anxiety response gets triggered when we feel under threat. And right now, a lot of people are feeling like their health is under threat, or maybe it's a loved one, or maybe it's, you have great empathy and you feel for people around the world. So your anxiety response is probably a little bit more triggered than you realize. So that means everything is a little bit more sensitive, and maybe your tolerance level is a little bit lower at work or in your relationships or whatever it might be, because there is that underlying anxiety that's kind of bubbling along underneath the surface. And then, goes hand in hand, if we are feeling anxious and overwhelmed and tired and all of those kind of things, that, sadness is probably something that's going to sneak through and start to sometimes overwhelm us a little bit. I think I'm going to try. Let's see if this works. I'm going to try and share my screen right now.
Don't share. Hold on. I don't know how you're going to do this, because we tried this before and it went mega Zoom. So let's see.
Let's try. I'm going to try.
But that's so true. While you're working that out, I feel like feeling sad is something that a lot of us are feeling at the moment, but feel a little bit guilty about admitting. And I know I had a conversation with a friend recently about how I'm feeling really flat and how I'm feeling really down. And then I said I felt really guilty because I'm actually okay. Financially, I'm okay. Yes, I've been impacted, but not nearly as badly as other people. So I felt like it wasn't the right thing for me to be feeling bad about it. So I feel like after that conversation, it's no, just because there are worse experiences out there does not mean that your experiences are not valid.
Absolutely.
And you need to look after yourself first as well. I could go on and on about making sure that you put your oxygen mask on before caring about other people, or talking about how you need to fill your cup first, because you can't pour from an empty cup. But I think it's really important to talk about how your experience is a real experience and you need to look after you. But yes, it's really nice to be mindful that other people have, they're having a really hard time. How can you support that? But you actually still need to look after yourself.
Absolutely. I love what you just said. Your experience is valid, and if it's meaningful to you, then it is meaningful. And yes, people might have it worse off, and that might be one way that you can express that gratitude and that thanks, but that doesn't devalue what's happening for you. I think you can see what I've shared here. I want to have a chat about our circle of influence and our circle of control, and how that kind of responds to our circle of concern. So basically what this is kind of showing us is that there's so much happening in the world and in our environment right now. And when we spend too much time focusing on things that are outside of our control, that is when we experience things like sadness, because we feel a little bit helpless, and helpless and loneliness. These are the kind of feelings that ultimately kind of present themselves as sadness and depression. But you know, when you're able to focus on things that are within your control, that's when you feel quite empowered and you feel like you're having some sort of influence in the world or in your own kind of environment. So we call it the inside out approach. If you focus first on what you can control and the things you can influence, and you spend less time and energy focusing on that outside circle, the circle of concern, that's when you experience the greatest well-being that you can experience. But when you're working from the outside in, so you're thinking about really overwhelming things, that's when you can experience, I guess, a decreased level of well-being. I'm stopping my screen now, stopping sharing now. We'll see if that turns off.
I think that's done.
Is that working?
I don't know. Here, let me share my screen quickly, because I remember that booted you off last time. Oh, there we go. There we're back. I feel like your computer just doesn't want to stop screen sharing. It doesn't want to share
it. But yeah, when you are kind of going from the outside in and you're focusing on these really big things that you have limited control over, that's when the sadness really happens. So when you start focusing on the number of deaths and the number of, you know, cases and all of that kind of stuff, it can feel really overwhelming and you feel very helpless. You feel very little. And that's when I feel like people can become really, really, really sad. So what I was just showing you guys there is actually Stephen Covey's Circles of Concern and Circle of Influence, and that's been adapted over the years because that was put out back in the 1980s. But it's so relevant now. It's relevant all the time because when we focus on what we can't control, we feel really overwhelmed, and that really impacts our well-being. So my advice in that kind of situation is take it back to what you can control. Where you do have influence, you know, try and exert some of that influence, but spend less time and energy on the things that are outside of your control. You can still be concerned about them, but if that's where your most focus is and that's where your most energy is being spent, you are going to suffer. So take it back to the center. What is within your control? What's at your arm's reach?
Yeah, 100%. And I read a really good quote, obviously, on the source of best quotes on the internet, Instagram, recently. Yeah. And it said, just know enough to be educated, but not overwhelmed. So I think that it's also really important to make sure that we're informed, but then cut it off. And I've been feeling really overwhelmed recently because it's so much. Like, there are people literally dying from this, and that can feel really heavy. And it's not that I don't care, but I know I need to put my mental health first, and I know that I need to put, you know, my surrounding circle first. And to be in the best possible position, I actually need to absorb what I need to absorb and then not watch the news. So we haven't been watching free-to-air TV during this time. I go online and I check out what's going on so I know what's happening each day and I'm informed, but I don't actually want to be overwhelmed by it. And I'm actively not clicking on articles and reading them because it's too much for me. I just get really flat. I feel like I know I'm actually quite an empathetic person. So every time I read too much in it, I end up feeling really flat, really mopey, really down. And that's something that really gets to me, if that makes sense. Like, it's no longer trivial, like, not that it ever was, but for me at the start it's like, oh, okay, that's happening, but it didn't impact me, and now it just really hits me in the chest every time. So I think it's okay to really distance yourself and be okay with that. Like, don't feel bad because you're pulling away from stuff that's important.
No, not at all. And remember the context of Australia, not just since March, not since just the pandemic. If we rewind back to December last year, everyone was watching the news and on social media looking at the bushfires all over the world. We remember we raised $50 million around the bushfires.
We're so cool.
Yeah, because, you know, everything was so full on. We've been in a heightened state of kind of worry and anxiety and looking at death counts and looking at all of those kind of things for a really, really long time. And, you know, like I said, you've got to have a look at your context, and this has been going on. So like I said, you can't underestimate the power of reining back in your energy and your thinking back to what you can control. And that, when you're talking about COVID, it might be like, okay, well, I can't control if everyone else is wearing masks, but I can control if I'm wearing a mask. Yeah. And if I'm in a position at work where I influence, I don't know, policy and procedure, well, then you can, you know, have a discussion with your team about making sure that your COVID plan is, you know, up to scratch. But outside of that, you don't have a lot of control. So when you're looking at government, unless you're in the government, if you're talking about government restrictions and all of that kind of stuff, you've got to spend less energy there, spend less time there, because that's where we feel helpless.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's actually been a couple of really good questions that I've pointed out from our chat. So I'm going to bring those up. Okay. Someone said, I loved the fact that you mentioned imposter syndrome in the same light. Are you able to discuss some tips on removing yourself from having a perfectionist mindset / a fixed mindset, meaning you have an identity of being someone productive, but only in order to shield yourself from being ashamed otherwise?
Wow,
I thought that was...
That's not, I like that.
Yeah, really interesting. But I was like, wow, like that's a deep question. Like, let's talk about it.
Yeah, I think we could spend a whole nother hour on the
imposter syndrome. We could.
So I won't do that to you guys. But...
No, not yet. Like maybe another time we'll just do all of these webinars. But like, I think it's important to touch on though, because I think at the moment, like to me, that resonated because I keep seeing these quotes and they're driving me up the wall. And I hope other people resonate with me on this. I'm so sick of seeing them. Like, oh, if you don't come out of the other side of this lockdown with a new skill or like, you know, a new lease on life, or, you know, you've learned language or built a business, like you haven't used your time properly. Like, I'm sorry, pull your head in. Like we are in a pandemic. Like we need to survive. Like this is hard. We are social creatures as humans. Like, can people pull their heads in, please, and stop putting unrealistic expectations on? And to me, that question spoke to the sentiment that you need to be being productive during this time. Do we?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like you said, the only goal right now for everyone, you know, at a base level should be to get through this and, you know, take it a day at a time and don't be too much in your head about, you know, what you need to be doing in 3 to 6 months. And, you know, the type of person, and often it is women, often women do experience imposter syndrome. It does happen to men, but a little bit less, or it's less reported. But often the type of woman that does experience imposter syndrome is what we might call an overachiever or a bit of a perfectionist. And when they have that moment of vulnerability, they really question their abilities and they question their achievements. And right now, if we're working from home, and that hasn't been fun for all of us, we're getting a lot less validation, a lot less support than we normally would. You know, we don't have the camaraderie of a workplace and all of that kind of stuff. So we've got a lot of time alone with our thoughts. And for those that maybe are used to achieving a lot, or, you know, do strive to do a lot of things, right now is really challenging because they aren't feeling accomplished. So it's really easy to start getting in your head around, I'm not doing enough, I should be doing more, I should be doing better. And then all of those kind of imposter thoughts come in about, I'm going to lose my job, someone's going to find out that I'm not doing well, and et cetera, et cetera. So like I said, it's about adjusting those expectations for the context that you're living in right now. And, you know, you wouldn't have those expectations on friends or colleagues or anything like that. So it's important to show a little bit of kindness and compassion to yourself.
100%. And I think it's also important, like imposter syndrome is something everybody struggles with at some point. Like I think I'm a fraud all the time. Like I know I'm not logically, but I'm like, oh my gosh, they're going to find out that, you know, I'm not as cool as I am, which I'm not. But I just feel like so many people feel it. And I'm assuming you feel it at some stage as well. Like you get put in these situations and you're like, they're going to find out that I shouldn't be here. What do you mean I shouldn't be here? Like, and I think that that is a very negative mindset because you're not giving yourself credit for the positive things you've done to actually achieve it. It's like wiping it off the table and being like, oh, I just accidentally fell into this job, or I accidentally fell into this position, or I was accidentally given this opportunity. It's like, no, you weren't. You're there for a reason and you're the right person. And I think that's something that really resonates with me And something that I tell myself all the time, because I'm quite, I don't know, would you call it spiritual? I don't know. Is that the right word? Like quotey person. Let's call me a quotey person.
Okay.
That I use positive and negative is like, I am exactly where I need to be right now. Like whatever I'm experiencing is that I am exactly where I need to be right now. If it's negative, I need to learn from this. If it's positive, like I am grateful for being there, but like I deserve to be there. So I think that that's something that other people could take and just go, no, any situation that you experience, you're exactly where you need to be, and you need to think about why.
I love that.
Yeah, and I just think it's really important, right?
Yeah, I love that idea. And I think, you know, like you said, you're where you need to be right now. And believe it or not, you are acquiring skills, whatever it is that you are doing right now. If you're working from home, if you've been laid off work, there's, you know, being in 12 months time, hopefully when all of this is over and we're looking back on this and you know, evaluating what was going on, putting on your resume that you were able to do X, Y, and Z during a pandemic, and all the skills that we learned. Hey, Victoria and I are learning how to do this webinar thing tonight.
I've worked out how to use a webinar tool all by myself, guys.
Exactly. We're all learning skills that in some respect are going to be transferable later on, and you don't need to be learning another language or learning, you know, something else, and having these huge, you know, unrealistic goals. I think
this is not a time for revelations. This is
a
time for survival. Like this is,
and comparison is the thief of joy, and
it totally is.
Yeah. So, and another thing about imposter syndrome, comparing yourself to other people. Right now, you think other people are doing that stuff, but in reality, like I said, everyone's goal right now is to take it a day at a time and just get through what's happening.
100%. All right, there was another one that was from our chat, and then we'll go back to the questions that we already got, because I know we've pulled out some really good ones. This one says, I'm using online shopping as my self-care outlet and my bank account is crying. How can I stop spending? And I think this is a question for both of us. So I'm
you go first.
No, you go first.
I would say, you know, like we were saying before, everyone's self-care strategy is going to look really different. The thing about self-care is it's never just one thing that works. So you love online shopping, but there's going to be something else that you love doing as well. So maybe it's not about completely stopping online shopping, but maybe doing a little bit less of it and replacing that time with something else. And I would really recommend during a pandemic that try and make it around connecting to people. Sadness and loneliness. Sadness is often connected to loneliness. So if you can look for opportunities of connection, whether that's just a phone call or texting with a friend or whatever it is, opportunities of connection are a great opportunity for self-care as well. But just doing less, you don't have to cut it out completely, maybe doing a little bit less of it. And there's nothing wrong, you might be able to say this, Victoria, too, putting it in your cart and not buying it. You can think about it later.
Yes, no, I love that. That's actually one of the, I've got 2 tips here, right? That's actually my first one, and I say this all the time, and that is put 24 hours between you and your spending. So like if you are up late, and we all been really good at spending at 3 a.m. because it's a good idea and we can't sleep and we're stressed and anxious, and that just makes us feel good, because online shopping gives us a hit of dopamine, and that's what we're looking for with online shopping at the end of the day, if that's the way you're dealing with things. So for me, put 24 hours between you and your spending at a minimum. So if you can put it in your cart and go, I'll come back to that tomorrow, and then reevaluate whether you really need it. So you're absolutely on the same page as me, Breanna. But then also, if you can put a week between you and your spending, fantastic, like even better. A month, perfect. Like, but it's also really unreasonable, which is why I always start with 24 hours. But then the second thing is, have a really good think about why you are spending. Like, why is that your outlet? Like, why are you stressed? Take some time. And I find that journaling can be really helpful. Like, write down how you're feeling so that you can see it on paper and go, you're right, I am feeling sad. You're right, I am feeling anxious. Like, what can I do to put, you know, some time between me and making that decision? Or what's another activity I can do? Because I often find that when I talk to people who are shopping a lot and don't want to be shopping, it's a time-consuming, mindless activity. Like, and you just want a time-consuming, mindless activity.
Yeah.
Have a look for another one. Like, there is no shame in time-consuming, mindless activities. I promise you, look at how embarrassing the apps I download on my phone are. Like, I am queen of Candy Crush, but I think that,
well done.
Like, it's, thank you. I've been trying for so long. But I think swapping one task for another and just having a think about why you're doing that is going to be really helpful for you. And just finding something to replace it with. Lily says TikTok. I'm here for Lily, like Lily, same. I'm in a TikTok hole all the time, but also let's talk about social detoxes soon. All right, next question. What do you think, Breanna?
Yeah, well, actually, there's a question that stood out for me, Victoria,
All right,
on that idea of phones. It says, "Hi, Victoria and Breanna. My phone plays a massive role in my life, purely for entertainment via social media, YouTube, and podcasts. I was wondering how I can cut down on my phone use, as I am currently spending a shocking 6 hours on my phone per day. How do I cut back so I can focus on myself and my mental and physical health?"
Yes.
I love, love, love that question. And I think, we could be really practical about this and kind of say things like, you can set timers on your phone. And I know I have clients that do this for their mental health, and they set limits on their apps that they're using. So they might limit their social media use to an hour a day, and a timer will go off on their phone when they reach that and all that kind of stuff. And they're really great practical things that you can do. You can press ignore. So this is a mental kind of thing as well that you need to kind of overcome. But kind of along the lines of what you were saying before, Victoria, you're probably on this phone for, your boredom or, isolated or something like that, reflecting on what purpose is that phone fulfilling for you. I made a post the other day on my Instagram, and it was about doom scrolling.
Doom scrolling.
It's this idea that new concept. What doom scrolling is, the idea that we are just mindlessly searching social media and kind of the World Wide Web for information, and typically it's bad information. Maybe it's the death count or COVID numbers and all of that kind of stuff. And it's not fulfilling any purpose in us. Doom scrolling might also mean that you're just mindlessly flicking through Instagram or, TikTok or whatever it is, and it's making you feel bad about yourself in some way. And
I compare myself to so many people on social media. Like, I'm obviously quite an open person, so I'm very happy to say that. But sorry, if I've spent too long on Instagram or even TikTok, I find myself thinking that, like maybe I should change my hair, or maybe I should, do my lashes differently, or wear more tan, or I find myself thinking of so many silly things that I definitely don't need to do. Yeah. And I find myself going, I need to check myself. And I feel like a lot of other people need to do that as well.
Yeah, well, that's doom scrolling.
It's true, right? Like, I'm doom scrolling.
You're doom scrolling. You didn't even realize, but that's the thing. It's a mindless activity.
And now I'm being thrown under a bus in my own webinar.
Oh,
I'm kidding.
Well, hey, if anyone learned something, if you learned one thing and it's doom scrolling today, then I'm happy. So this idea though that we spend hours and it's generally mindless hours. So it's about reflecting on that question you asked before. What purpose is this activity fulfilling for me? Is it connection? Am I feeling isolated? How can I achieve connection without this? So is it, a phone call with, loved ones, or is it, God forbid, a Zoom, after you're Zoom fatigued all day? But whatever it might be a socially distant walk at the same time as someone else, whatever it might be. But asking yourself, what purpose is this fulfilling, and can I get this from some other means? So if it is 100%. That you're bored, where else can you seek novelty and excitement? So it might be, watching a movie, even if you've seen it before, or a new TV show or something like that. But we know that there is correlation between social media use and mental health issues. And unfortunately, when one goes up, the other one goes up too. So if you can limit your social media use, I would recommend it. There's some great things that happen on your phone, though. Podcasts and community support groups.
Are good.
Yeah, but there's some great things that happen on there as well. So it's about, is this productive or is it not productive? Is it fulfilling a need for me, or is this a bit mindless? And trying to substitute those negative ones for the positive ones.
Totally, and I think that leads into another one of the questions that we got. And it was, self-care is often seen as a bougie thing for people who can afford it. Can it be redefined for people who don't have high dispensable incomes?
I love this point.
I've actually written notes. Are you ready? You're going first.
No, but all I was going to say was, sometimes I hate saying the word self-care. I hate saying those words because it has become this bit of taboo kind of to make fun of kind of concept. And, you know, people throw around the word self-care, and it's almost a joke now as well. Oh yeah, I'm not coming into work today, self-care, like that kind of thing. So I think we have to kind of reimagine what that means, and take it really literally, which means looking after yourself and revitalizing and re-energizing so that you can meet the challenges that life are throwing at you every day. But like I said, being self-aware enough to realize when you need a little bit more self-care than you normally would.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's really important. But what I really wanted to go through was, guys, we all know I love a good list. So I have written a list of self-care tips or self-care things that we can do that don't cost any money, because that is really important. But then I also Googled this, and there were also some, in my opinion, terrible self-care tips, which I'm not going to go through because then I might offend some people, who knows.
I'm going to write these down.
Yeah, okay, all right, I'm ready. I'm going to put them into a newsletter for all the people that joined the webinar as well. Okay. But some self-care tips that I think are important because I actually do them myself that don't cost any money. So the first thing was podcasts and music. I find podcasts that lift me up or people that I really like, but every time I do that, I like time it with a walk. So like I don't just like have it on in the background. I'll purposefully go out on a walk and, you know, take a cup of tea or something and keep cup and like have a nice walk and listen to a podcast. I also write lists. So I'm a big list person in every sense of the word. Every morning I'll write a list, and I will break down an hour by hour schedule for my day and stick to it. And I found that during ISO, that has been really important for me because I love schedule. I love like being in, you know, just having a routine. And I used to get up every morning, go to the gym. I would go to work. I would have breakfast at work because I was there early, and I would smash up my day and I'd have a million meetings. And for me, that is completely blown up now. I just feel lost. So for me, writing a list that is 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and what I'm going to get up to has been really amazing. And then getting my heart rate up. So, you know, working out, whether that is a walk or whether it is Yoga by Adrienne on YouTube, or more recently I've been getting into a girl called Chloe Ting. She has these great workouts on YouTube, and you can do like a number of them. She's got like challenges. And she also
from home. Do I have to go to a gym?
No, you don't need a gym. You just, I do it, guys. I do it in front of my TV, wearing my pajamas sometimes because I'm an adult. So that's been really good. So Chloe Ting and Yoga by Adrienne, sometimes I do both of them. I'll do like a quick 20-minute like workout with Chloe, and then I'll do my Yoga by Adrienne to relax. And I think that that has been really great. So I wanted to share that. Cooking, amazing. Cooking doesn't have to be bougie. Like, make pasta, learn to make pasta, buy some flour. Like, don't be too fancy. Don't even try the Tipo 00 flour or whatever it is. I'm gluten-free, so everything's more expensive when you're gluten-free. But like, just get some pasta or get some flour and start cooking something. Doesn't need to be fancy, but it's an activity where you could learn, which I think is kind of cool. Tidying your space. Making sure that like your environment is comfortable. I think we can all do that, which I think is really good. And also, we all know I love a money win, but more than a money win, I love a small win and celebrating the small wins and writing those down. So keeping a gratefulness journal and like every morning waking up and writing the things that I'm grateful for. And more recently, I've been trying to write my intentions for the day. So just what I'm getting up to for the day and go, okay, cool, I'm going to have a really good day and I'm going to really enjoy getting through all of my emails today. And I know that sounds really lame, but Breanna, you would know this. And like for those of you playing along at home that don't know me very well, I do have a background in psychology. So I'm absolutely well and truly not a psychologist, but I thrive on this stuff. I love it. And for me, your mind loves what it knows. Like, your body wants to be consistent, your mind wants to be consistent and comfortable. So if you create something and you create a list at the start of the day that is like, okay, I am going to really enjoy doing this. I am, you know, going to finish that. I'm going to do this. Your mind is going to be more comfortable doing them because you've already set the intention and you're already comfortable with the idea instead of getting to like 10:30 in the morning. Yes, Mish, I do love to talk. I have a podcast. Weird.
I'm enjoying your talking. I love it. But you know what? The best thing that you just said, journaling. I can't
Journaling, how
advocate
good
for it
is
enough.
it? And it's free and you feel so light after it, right?
Yeah, and it's so great for developing self-awareness and developing just a better understanding of yourself. So I'm a huge advocate for it as well.
100%. And I just felt like it was really important to write this list because, like this list of just things you can do that are free, because it's really important to point out that you don't have to have like an expensive face mask and like, a really expensive moisturizer or whatever it is.
Or go and get your nails done or go and get your hair
done.
It
doesn't have to be expensive. Like, just look after you and look after your mental health. Also, thank you to everybody who's saying like keep talking. I really appreciate that. All right, Breanna, next question. What do you think?
Yes, let's do it.
All right. So someone has said, I believe in fill up your cup before you can fill others. But how do you manage when your partner needs support, which puts a toll on your own mental health at the same time?
Yeah, great question. Relevant inside and outside of a pandemic. I think it's about turn taking sometimes. And, self-awareness is really important, to develop in yourself, but developing a good self-awareness of what your relationship kind of needs are really important too. So, when I'm talking to my husband, I can identify when he needs my full attention. If he's had a bad day at work or if there's something going on for him, I can go, right, this is the time that he needs me. So that's about me being aware enough to know what his warning signs are to say, okay, this needs to be about him. But then also not being afraid for asking for that support yourself. Sometimes we're not vocal enough about when we need our own support or our own kind of listener or anything like that. So vocalizing that and when you think they've parked their thing and then they've had enough time and it is safe to kind of move on to your own kind of needs, that's really important too. But support doesn't also always mean talking. For sometimes, for a partner, it's just going to be time. Just spending time together might be enough of a support that you need. But I really, like I said, inside and outside of a pandemic, this is such an important issue. But developing that self-awareness in yourself. I think sometimes when we're in a relationship and we're feeling like, I'm not getting what I need from this, we're not listening to respond. We're listening to kind of just start talking when that person stops talking. So actually getting on that person's level, expressing some empathy and some understanding, problem solving together is a great way of doing it too. And then, like I said, really sharing that time as well. And then, if you think your partner is struggling with some significant mental health concerns or yourself as well, don't be afraid to reach out to professionals as well. There's only so much a partner can offer. And I think sometimes we shy away from that idea of professional support, and maybe we delay that longer than we should. So reaching out for professional support or using the support of friends and family as well when you need it.
I think that's actually a good question. And I know how it works and I know you do too, but I know so many people don't. Like, what if I'm feeling really sad and really flat and go, hey, I want some support. I don't really want to call Lifeline or Beyond Blue.
Yeah.
What do I do? Like, what are the steps there, especially during this time? And what would that actually look like for us?
Yeah, with your partner?
Yeah, like what do I do? Like, if I'm feeling sad and I know my partner's feeling sad and I want to get some advice, who do I call? What do I do? Like, what's the first step?
Yeah, I think, you don't necessarily, you have to utilize professional support services if you have a mental illness. Sometimes it's just really good to have these conversations. The mental health care plans that are available right now are really good because a lot of people are bulk billing, which means you can talk to someone for free as well, or rebated. So that's a really good idea. So again, professional help is always a good idea, but bouncing ideas off friends and family as well could be of support. Say if you are needing support, because I'm also conscious not everyone does have a partner. Just being vulnerable enough to say, hey, I'm looking for some support right now. I'm not feeling great, or I can't. There's some great resources online these days where you can do a little bit of reading, even some questionnaires and that kind of stuff about how you're feeling. So don't be afraid to utilize the professional support that's available. And that might be just reading some really quality resources, or it might be, like I said, reaching out to family and friends as well and bouncing ideas off them.
Yeah, awesome. All right. Well, next question. Do you have one that's sticking out to you, or do you want me to read another one?
I just want to point out what Rhiannon just said in the chat about her employer providing EAP services at the moment. So lots of companies will do this, and you might not even realize, especially if you are a part of a bigger company. So EAP is access to free counseling services that your employer pays for. Your employer doesn't know who's utilizing them. It's anonymous, but they pay for these annually anyway. So you may as well utilize them. So it's always good to ring up HR, find out, does my company have EAP? It's probably in your contract or your employment kind of pack when you've got onboarded and that kind of thing. But you can utilize this, and hey, it's a great benefit if you are lucky enough to work for a big organization. It's a benefit of your employment. So I definitely recommend people using it. Thank you, Rhiannon, for reminding me to say that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then there's another one that said EAP can also extend to family and friends if needed.
That's right.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it does. So your partner can use it, or if you're a parent, your children can utilize those sessions. And some of them, it's not just 3, some of them have 6 sessions for free and that kind of thing. So definitely something to look into. And also, saving money and that kind of stuff, something to look into if you are looking for some mental health support, or like I said, just bouncing ideas and some general counselling from someone in that field.
Yeah, awesome. All right, so the next question I thought was interesting and quite relevant, because I think all of us have been guilty at some point of saying, I'm too busy. How do you prioritize self-care when it's the last thing you feel like doing, or you're really super busy?
Yeah. Self-care can be something as simple as like making time to, brush your teeth, or, do your laundry or something like that. Sometimes it's going to be things that are already incorporated into your routine.
Mm-hmm.
For some people, it is going to be about saving time, and it's going to be getting takeaway instead of cooking and that kind of thing. That's an example of self-care. It's about putting your needs and prioritizing your needs ahead of other things that are going on and stresses and that kind of thing. I would also say I'm probably guilty of this too, but it's okay to say no to things.
100%.
I hate letting people down, and I always want to say yes and those kind of things. But sometimes for my self-care, I have to say no. Otherwise I'm overworked, or, if someone wants to, grab, not for those in lockdown, but here in Sydney, we can still kind of go out, socially distance. So if someone is asking me for dinner plans or coffee and that kind of stuff, I know sometimes my self-care is just saying, actually, today's not a great day, but I'd love to do that in the future. Or, hey, we've got this deadline, blah, blah, blah. And I'll say, actually, that's not going to work for me. I think it's best to give that to someone else. So, yeah, I think, don't underestimate those little things that actually equate to self-care.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. Now, guys, I am avoiding the money questions, because a lot of the money questions that I saw come through were all about debt and all about, what can I do to save money or budget money? And I actually have another webinar coming up on Monday, if you guys are interested in joining that. With Wiser, who were the sponsors of this week's podcast. I literally was like, guys, I want you to do a podcast with me, or no, I want you to do a webinar with me, because I just feel like our community really wants it, and I really want to talk about debt. So if you want questions about, or if you have questions about debt, that's a good one to RSVP to. Again, it's just a free one. I'm going to grab a wine or a cup of tea and have a chat. But I do have some more questions. I just wanted to address that. I wasn't talking about the money questions right now for a reason. What do we have next? Breanna.
Let's check it out.
I have so many questions there.
There's so many. There's some good ones here.
I'm so grateful for all of these guys as well. They're clearly very well thought out. A good question, actually, that I think both of us can answer. Do you have any advice on how to accept that you feel like you are contributing less because you earn less than your partner? growing up, I always wanted to be an independent woman, but I was diagnosed with an autoimmune condition in my early 20s. This meant that I can only work part-time. I love and trust my partner, but we're under a lot of stress at the moment, and I can't seem to let go of the disappointment of being financially dependent on someone else.
Yeah, I feel, yeah, I empathize. I think, that's really, really tough. I think the money story behind that's really interesting. But what I'm hearing there is that you are only valuing one aspect of what you contribute in that relationship. And there's so many other ways that you can contribute to a relationship that are just as meaningful as your monetary contribution.
Yeah.
So that might be, we were talking about this before, the support you can give your partner. Don't underestimate how important that is. Other things, maybe you're a great cook, or, whatever it is that you can do to help, benefit the life of yourself and your partner is so important. So, I think, really this becomes a question of kind of your values and, where do your values lie? And hopefully they're not just in money. Hopefully there's other things that bring you purpose and are meaningful to you. And it's about attributing your sense of self to something else outside of just money. And like I said, you'll be able to find something that you bring to that relationship. And valuing that just as much as you do money is really important, because I guarantee you your partner values other things more than money.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And like, this is obviously a finance community, and we are called She's on the Money, so it feels front of mind.
Yeah.
But your relationship isn't a financial relationship with your partner. Like, you bring so much more to that relationship than the money that you earn, and your partner quite clearly isn't that worried about it, but we all want to feel like we're contributing. So I can completely get that. But you're right. I think just understanding that your value is so much more than, the money that you bring to the table. Like, it's a balance, and we all bring different amounts of each thing to it. Yeah. There was a really great question in the chat, just to put, where have my words gone tonight? My gosh.
All that wine, Victoria.
Oh, no. Yeah, like, I had a full glass and I still pretty much have a full glass. I'm just like, where are these questions? It's very hard to keep up with like the questions in the chat and like.
I know there's so much going on, but it's so nice to see everyone, writing and commenting and saying 100%. They love things. I just love the question. We got sent in a question, what book recommendations do you have? I can talk about that. We could talk about that too for an hour. Actually, I've got one here.
Oh my gosh, like literally an hour. Like, I could talk about books. I don't know if you guys can see behind me, but there are cats, and there are also like a million books. This is like one of 4 bookcases in my house. Like, you want a book recommendation? I am here for that.
What is my book? I'm reading Women in Leadership.
Oh, is it good?
I love it. It's
impressive.
Very good. Yeah,
impressive.
I'm enjoying it at the moment.
I really want to answer this question in the group chat, which says, what mindfulness apps would you recommend?
Okay, cool.
So, I don't know, do you have any good recommendations?
I wouldn't underestimate Smiling Mind.
I love Smiling Mind.
Love Smiling Mind. Free and personalized as well. You put in your details, your age, and all of that kind of stuff.
And so user friendly as well. Like, and there's even so many like, there's business owner parts in Smiling Mind. Like, love it.
So good. And people think mindfulness or meditation and that kind of thing has to be like a hour-long activity and that kind of stuff. You'll learn from Smiling Mind that you can do meditation and mindfulness in really short, sharp bursts throughout the day, or once a day. So the Smiling Mind, I don't underestimate that. I love the Calm app as well.
I really love the Calm app as well. Yeah. And recently, actually not even recently, this is like probably the app I've had the longest, is Oak. And I think that's like a lesser known one, but I really like the mindfulness activity, or the mindfulness breathing, sorry. I've been using that to go to bed. And it's like, deep breathing, and like it kind of it's guided meditation really, because I'm bad at normal meditation. Yeah. So I think that, it's really important to find some free apps that can help. But then also, guys, on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts, or like whatever podcasting app or music app you use, there are like sleep stories and like guided meditation podcasts and like guided meditation audio, and it's all free. And you can just find someone that you like, or like their voice. And like, I've been using a lot of those recently. Like, there's sleep stories, where nothing really happens, I think it's called, and they're like the most,
sleep.
it literally puts me to sleep, and her voice is so calming. It is so great. But yes, does anybody else?
I'm seeing in the chat people are asking about books and
okay.
I'm on Goodreads. I don't know about you, Victoria, but I'm on Goodreads. Are you on Goodreads?
Oh no, I don't keep track of it. I will be on Goodreads hopefully soon. What else have I got? I have been reading. Oh, there's too many. So recently I have been loving, I don't swear, but like The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck was really great.
Yeah.
I think probably really relevant for now. I'm just turning around and looking at my bookshelf to be like, what have I read recently?
By the way, someone, Sada's put in the chat, Victoria, that the Harry Styles stories on Car app is her guilty pleasure. Yes.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even know that. I'm running for it. Another good book that I've read recently is Thrive by Ariana Huffington, and that I think was like a really good girl power book. I also really liked, what am I talking about? Grit, which was, you haven't read that, you will love it. Like, I think that we're very similar, so you will love it. So it's Grit by Angela Duckworth or Duckworthy. Anyway, Grit, amazing. It's so much more about, the people who are most successful aren't the people who are the smartest. They're actually the people that get back up after they've been pushed down, and they're the people who are tenacious, and they are the people who, keep trying and keep putting in the energy. And there's all of this research around how, it's the people who put in the most effort and like keep getting back up that are, thank you, Larissa, it's Duckworth.
I love it. I'm gonna check it out.
It is such a good book, and it is so well researched and just so well presented. And if you're not into reading, she has done an epic TED Talk, which I loved as well. And she just talks about grit and how important it is. And it's something that I adore. Emily, yes, I will try and add these to the newsletter as well. Maybe we could go and do like a weekly like book recommendation. How cool would that be in our newsletter? Just put more pressure on Georgia King. Be like, excuse me, Georgia King, could you please add some more information about books? She's a big reader.
I love there's some other recommendations coming through. Everyone in your chat, they're so
I appreciate
but you know
guys.
what? People are talking about great mental health things as well. There's a recommendation in there around Mood Gym, which is a great free resource. It's online. It's all about supporting your own mental health, and it's like a module thing that you work through. I love Dana. Thank you for recommending that. There's some great free mental health supports online, so I can't recommend that kind of stuff enough. And if you follow me on Instagram, because I talk about that kind of stuff often as well.
Yeah, you do. Guys, I love the idea of book club, but I also think that if we have a She's on the Money book club, it would have to be money books. If you want a good book club, I know the Shameless podcast community have a Shameless book club, which is amazing. So if you want to actually have a book club that isn't money books, because that would be what I would want to do, go in and jump into their community, because they are wild about books.
I do follow them. That's a good
they're so great. But I think that could be really good. Do you know what time it is? We've been talking for an entire hour, which I'm sure no one's surprised about, given it's me. But
I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, I loved this. This is so fun. Do you guys have any final questions that you want us to address now? Maybe we'll just do like 3 more questions and then maybe we'll go. What do you reckon?
Sounds good.
Yeah, and then maybe if you guys liked this, we could do another webinar at some point in the future.
Yeah, if people are keen for that, I would definitely be up for it.
I reckon. I think this was really fun, and it was kind of nice connecting, and I hope that everybody at home has had, I think everybody at home hopefully has had a nice evening and had their dinner and now can go home, or you're already home, sorry about that. What are some self-care tips for nurses and healthcare workers, asks Bronwyn.
My heart goes out to all the nurses and healthcare workers, allied health professionals right now. I know even psychologists and other mental health workers right now are going through a lot. But yeah, to the nurses, my heart goes out to you. It must be incredibly difficult. I go back to what I was showing before with your circles. There's so much outside of our control right now that we really have to try and zone in on what we can control. Because when we focus on that kind of stuff that's outside of our control, but we're so concerned about, we become really helpless. So my advice for nurses and other healthcare professionals is to, as much as you can, expend your energy on things that you can control, and remind yourself what a great job you're doing, because we're all incredibly proud of you. And I think sometimes it's easy for you to downplay and minimize what you're doing. So yeah, look after yourselves.
100%. Emily says, how do you stop self-care pressure? Which I think is a really good one to actually let us end on. She says, I always feel like I have to be productive in self-care. How do I switch off and rest properly? And I think the biggest thing that I could say here before Breanna answers probably in a more responsible and smarter way is that, to me, self-care could sometimes be vegging out on the couch, and watching a movie and eating too much.
And going to bed on time.
Chocolate. Yeah, it could be going to bed. It could be laying in your bed on Instagram. It is something different for everybody. Don't feel pressure to be productive. But what would you say there, Breanna?
Well, the pressure to be productive is literally the opposite of what self-care is trying to do. Self-care is about re-energizing and revitalizing and those kind of things. So, if the gym revitalizes you, then that is self-care. But if edging out on the couch revitalizes and re-energizes you, well, then that's self-care as well. And we spoke about this at the beginning, that idea that we have to be so productive and we have to be so accomplished right now is a bit bizarre and so beyond what the essence of what we're going through right now is. Remember, our anxiety responses are heightened. We are going through a pandemic. So take it down a notch and just ask yourself, what brings me joy? And, where do I get my most energy? And like I said, for me, self-care is getting my 8 hours of sleep a night. If I do that, I know I'm going to feel better tomorrow. So like you were saying, it doesn't have to cost a lot of money, but it doesn't have to be productive either. But if productive, self-care might be reading a really good book as well, and you do feel accomplished and productive after that as well. So finding the nuances that work for you. Someone asked in there, will I share the circles that I was talking about before? Yeah, it's Stephen Covey's Circle of Concern, Circle of Influence with a slight adaptation, and I'll share that on my Instagram later today.
Awesome. Could you send it to me and I'll include it in our newsletter this week that is going to go out at midday tomorrow. Yeah. So I'll pop that in for you guys to download. And that would be really helpful. I've loved this session. Breanna, do you want to do the same thing again this time next week?
I would love to. Yeah, if everyone's interested, I'd love to.
If everybody wants to hang out with us again, same time next week, let's hang out. We will talk more self-care, more mental health, more mental illness. We will be all over this. I think it's really important. Min, you've just asked where you can get our newsletter. If you head to shesonthemoney.com.au, you can sign up to the newsletter directly from the box at the very bottom. So add yourself in there and it will be in your inbox tomorrow just after lunchtime probably. But yes, we will see you beautiful people next Thursday. I am so grateful for you all attending and I hope you have a lovely evening. Now go to bed early and practice some self-care.
Absolutely. Bye.
Night, friends.
Night.
Bye.
Bye.